But there is, I think, worrying signs of disarray within Philippine policymaking and messaging that came out of this. And maybe the operation itself was a sign of the fracturing of the consensus within the Marcos government. I mean, by all appearances, the Navy decided to do this without the support of the National Security Council and the Coast Guard, et cetera. And then we had what seemed like a 4-day media blackout before the Philippines was willing to say anything. I mean, if you had told me this was going to happen, a month ago, what I would have said is, so I assume there'll be a, nationwide press conference with President Marcos at a podium within 12 hours. And instead, it seemed like it took 4 days before the Philippine government could even decide whether to admit that it had happened. That continues. I mean, nobody seems to know who's calling the shots. The executive secretary seems to have been thrown under the bus by the defense secretary as they argue over whether or not to characterize this as an accident or an act of aggression. Is this just temporary? I mean, do you think that there actually is a consensus and what we're just seeing is kind of natural bureaucratic bickering?
There is a consensus in the sense that definitely the directives and the direction that everybody wants to take is to assert Philippine rights and entitlements and defend Second Thomas Shoal, defend it from being taken out by China one way or another. But there has been a transition with the establishment of the National Maritime Council. There is that, yes, and there is that bureaucratic bickering, as you call it, that also takes place. After all, this is a major issue, and for quite a while now, it has been directed by the NTF, the National Task Force for West Philippine Sea. But the National Task Force for West Philippine Sea is basically an artifact of the previous administration. So now with changes being made by the new administration, including addressing the maritime concerns, not just West Philippine Sea, but everything else as well, there is that period. So there is this transition, I think. And then there's also the need, I guess, for government to redirect and consolidate its efforts when it comes to this. For quite a while now, the centerpiece of the Philippines has been the transparency policy, the transparency initiative, which has produced a remarkable amount of support. It's generated a lot of international support for the Philippines and its positions in the West Philippine Sea. But on the other hand, it has become clear that China has been steadily escalating its actions and intensifying its moves against the Philippines. And this latest one, I think, is just a sign of that. I would tend to think that what happened, particularly on June 17, that violent incident, was also, in a way, kind of panic reaction on the part of the China Coast Guard. They were surprised that the Philippines actually was able to reach the Sierra Madre, those two boats. Whoever was the commander on the ground really just lost it, I guess. And that's why I think that also stressed to both sides the danger really in this situation where everybody's on edge and everybody's still pushing without letting up. And maybe that's why now they tried using this BCM as the opportunity now to try to find ways to at least stabilize the situation, hopefully begin the process of stepping back from this brink.